Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when we stand face to face with the shadows of our own existence. Times when softness, forgiveness, and compassion seem inadequate in the battle for truth, strength, and survival. In those moments, the world does not wait for our hesitation. It demands that we act with clarity, with courage, and, yes, without mercy, not cruelty, not senseless destruction, but without mercy toward weakness, illusions, and the false comforts that chain us. For only then can we awaken to the fullness of who we are meant to be. The greatest illusions we encounter are not painted on the walls of the world outside, but are born within the chambers of our own minds. They appear innocent, sometimes even comforting, wrapping us in promises of safety, belonging, or success. Yet behind their veil lies a silent betrayal, for illusions rob us of authenticity. They lead us to live not as ourselves, but as actors playing out roles scripted by society, family expectations, or the endless echo of cultural standards. Think of the countless men and women who spend their years chasing the illusion of perfection, perfect careers, perfect families, perfect bodies, only to discover, often too late, that they were living for applause rather than for truth. The mask may win approval, but it also suffocates the soul beneath it. Illusion is powerful precisely because it is seductive. It whispers. Stay where it is safe. Stay where others approve. Yet safety in illusion is not life, it is stagnation. Imagine the individual who rises each morning, ties their tie, polishes their shoes, and walks into an office where their spirit feels absent. Outwardly, they may appear successful, driving the car, owning the house, posting the pictures that convince others of their happiness. But inside there is a gnawing emptiness. The illusion of fulfillment covers a reality of despair. That despair deepens because they convince themselves this is what life should be, when in truth life was meant to be a living dialogue with the deepest part of the self. To live without mercy toward illusion means daring to pierce the veil even when it leaves us vulnerable. It requires the courage to say, "This is not me, this is not my life," even if others cannot understand. It may mean abandoning a career built on false ambition, walking away from relationships that no longer reflect your essence, or letting go of dreams that were never truly yours. And yes, it will hurt. The shattering of illusion is rarely gentle, but the pain of dismantling it is far less than the agony of living a lifetime in its shadow. Consider the story of Howard Schultz, the man behind Starbucks. He was born into poverty in Brooklyn, raised in a housing complex for the poor. The illusion for a child like him was that he would never rise beyond his circumstances, that his destiny was fixed. But Schultz refused to let that illusion govern him. He tore through it by following a vision that others dismissed as impractical, building a coffee culture in America. He risked humiliation, he risked failure, but he chose reality over illusion. The result was not just success, but transformation, not only for himself, but for millions of people who today gather in coffee shops that embody his dream. The stripping away of illusion is not the destruction of life, it is its beginning. For when the false layers fall, what remains is raw, unfiltered truth. And truth, though it may not always be comfortable, is the only soil where the soul can truly grow. To live without mercy toward illusion is to stand bare in the light, to embrace authenticity, and to finally breathe the air of freedom. Fear is perhaps the most persuasive companion we encounter in life. It sits beside us in silence, whispering warnings, predicting disasters, magnifying doubts until even the simplest step forward feels like an impossible leap. It thrives not in reality, but in imagination. Fear builds scenarios that have not happened and may never happen, yet it convinces us they are already written in stone. And when we give it mercy, when we give it space to grow, it begins to rule every decision, turning us into prisoners of our own minds. The insidious nature of fear lies in its subtlety. We do not always recognize it when it arrives. It hides behind hesitation, behind the words, "not now," "not me," or "what if I fail?" It disguises itself as prudence or practicality, convincing us that to play it safe is the smarter choice. But in truth, safety is the fertile ground where dreams die quietly. Every person who has achieved something extraordinary has had to confront fear, not once but countless times, and the difference was not the absence of fear, but the refusal to bow to it. Consider the young girl in Pakistan, Malala Yousafzai, who faced threats for daring to go to school. Fear should have silenced her, and by every logical measure, it should have been stronger than her courage. But she chose otherwise. She chose to live without mercy toward fear. And in doing so, she not only found her own voice, but gave millions of others permission to raise theirs. The bullet meant to silence her became a megaphone for her truth. Her story shows us that fear is loud only until it is faced, and then it collapses into something far smaller than we imagined. We see the same principle in our own lives, though on different scales. How many times have you avoided speaking your truth in a relationship, afraid of rejection? How many opportunities have you walked away from because fear of failure screamed louder than the possibility of success? These small moments accumulate until a lifetime is shaped not by what we dared to do, but by what we allowed fear to prevent us from doing. If you let fear dictate your path, you will find yourself living a life crafted not by your choices, but by your avoidance. Living without mercy toward fear does not mean recklessness. It does not mean ignoring real dangers. It means recognizing the difference between fear that protects and fear that imprisons. A tiger in the jungle demands respect, but the imaginary tiger that lives only in your thoughts must be slain without hesitation. For if you allow it to remain, it multiplies, filling your mind with endless cages until you forget you were ever free. When you strip fear of its dominion, what remains is possibility. Every act of courage is not the absence of trembling hands or pounding hearts. It is the decision to step forward anyway. The greatest discoveries, the deepest loves, the most profound contributions to humanity all began on the other side of fear. To live without mercy toward fear is to declare, "You may walk with me, but you will not lead me." And when fear no longer leads, life begins to expand in ways we never believed were possible. Mediocrity is one of the most subtle and dangerous forces that corrodes the human spirit. It does not arrive with thunder or storm. It creeps in quietly, disguised as comfort, disguised as stability, disguised as good enough. And once it takes hold, it convinces us to settle, to stop striving, to make peace with a smaller version of ourselves than we were meant to become. To live without mercy toward mediocrity is to recognize that every compromise of potential is a betrayal of the life entrusted to us. The tragedy of mediocrity is not that people fail, but that they stop trying. Think of the countless men and women who once carried vibrant dreams as children, dreams of creating, of exploring, of building something that mattered, only to see those flames dim as they grew older. Life pressures them, society tells them to be practical, fear whispers in their ear, and soon enough they begin to believe that average is acceptable. They get by, they follow routines, they exist, but they no longer live in the fullness of their own possibilities. And yet the silent achy never disappears. Deep inside, the soul knows it was meant for more, and it mourns every day we choose the easier path of mediocrity. History honors those who refuse to bow to it. Take Nikola Tesla, for example. He was mocked, ignored, and lived much of his life in poverty. Yet he pursued his vision with relentless devotion, exploring currents of electricity that others dismissed as madness. He worked in solitude, sometimes with barely enough to eat, but he would not compromise. He refused to live good enough, because he knew his purpose demanded more. His work changed the very fabric of modern life. Tesla's story reveals that greatness often comes at the cost of comfort, but it is a cost worth paying. The same is true in athletics, in art, in everyday life. Serena Williams, through years of sweat, tears, and discipline, did not just play tennis. She redefined what it meant to dominate the sport. Her body was pushed to breaking points, her mind tested by endless scrutiny, but she never allowed mediocrity to dictate her level of effort. She showed us that excellence is not gifted, It is carved from relentless resistance to the pull of just enough. Mediocrity is not harmless. It steals silently, one choice at a time. The decision not to push harder in your career, the silence when your truth should be spoken, the acceptance of a relationship that drains rather than nourishes. These are the quiet surrenders that build a life of regret. The danger is not that we aim too high and fail, but that we aim too low and succeed. To live without mercy toward mediocrity is to wake each morning and ask, am I moving closer to the highest version of myself? It is to treat every day as an opportunity to grow sharper, stronger, truer. And it is to refuse the poison of average in a world that desperately needs our extraordinary. For when mediocrity dies, the brilliance of human potential is set free, and that is the life every soul is secretly longing for. Excuses are the cleverest lies we tell ourselves, dressed in the garments of reason and justification. They feel safe, they sound logical, but they are nothing more than chains we willingly forge to keep ourselves bound. Each excuse is a small surrender, and together they form a prison in which potential suffocates. To live without mercy toward excuses means refusing to let them speak louder than your vision, your purpose, your responsibility to the life entrusted to you. Excuses often begin softly. I don't have enough time. I'm not ready yet. I'll start tomorrow. These words feel harmless, but they grow. The person who always says, I'll begin when the timing is right, often finds that a lifetime passes and the right time never arrives. Excuses do not protect us. They deceive us. They convince us that the problem is outside of our control, when in truth the only barrier is within us. And while we wait, while we postpone, while we explain away our lack of action, the opportunities we longed for pass silently into the hands of those who refuse to entertain such justifications. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times before finally creating the light bulb. Each failure could have become an excuse to stop, to say, it's too hard. It can't be done. I've wasted enough time. But he refused to allow those thoughts to settle. He said instead, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. His genius was not in his intellect alone, but in his mercilessness toward excuses. If he had stopped at failure number 100 or even 9,000, the world would be darker today. Or consider J.K. Rowling, who was rejected by multiple publishers before Harry Potter ever reached a single reader. She could have said, it's pointless. No one believes in me. Maybe they're right. Instead, she kept moving forward. She lived without mercy toward excuses, and in doing so, she gifted the world with one of the most beloved stories of all time. Excuses are not just obstacles to achievement, they are acts of self-sabotage. They rob us of dignity because they strip us of ownership. Every time you say, I can't, because you place your life in the hands of circumstance rather than in your own. And over time, you begin to believe the lie, you begin to think you are incapable, when the truth is you never gave yourself the chance to try. To live without mercy toward excuses is to tear them up the moment they appear. It is to hold yourself accountable, to say, if I fail, I will fail because I tried with all my strength, not because I surrendered before the battle began. It is to understand that there will never be perfect conditions, perfect resources, perfect timing. There is only now, and now demands action. When excuses are silenced, power returns. And in that power, a life once limited becomes limitless. The past is both a sacred teacher and a relentless captor. It carries within it the lessons of who we once were, the mistakes that scarred us, the victories that uplifted us, and the memories that shaped us. Yet for too many, the past does not remain as guidance. It becomes a prison. They replay old regrets, reopen wounds that should have been allowed to heal, and measure their present worth against yesterday's failures. To live without mercy toward the past is not to erase it or to deny its influence, but to strip it of its tyrannical power over the life that still lies ahead. We must understand that the past cannot be altered. No amount of guilt or longing can rewrite a single moment of yesterday. Yet people cling to it as if rehearsing it enough times might bend reality. How many carry shame for words they cannot take back, for opportunities they let slip, for wrong turns that led to pain? These memories form chains, and the more we caress them, the tighter they bind. Living without mercy toward the past means looking at those chains and saying, "You will not hold me anymore." Consider the story of Oprah Winfrey, who has spoken openly about the trauma she endured as a child. For many, such a beginning would have dictated the rest of their story, convincing them they were broken beyond repair. But she refused to give her past that kind of power. She acknowledged it, she spoke of it, she learned from it. But she also moved beyond it. She chose not to live as a victim of yesterday, but as an architect of tomorrow. Her life is a testament to the fact that we do not have to be defined by where we came from. We can be defined by what we create. We can also look to history. Nelson Mandela lost 27 years of his life to imprisonment. He could have emerged bitter, consumed by rage at what had been stolen from him. Yet he stepped out of prison with a vision for reconciliation and nation building. He lived without mercy toward the past, not by denying his suffering, but by refusing to let it dictate the man he would become. In doing so, he transformed his personal wounds into a source of healing for his entire country. In our own lives, the past might not take the form of trauma or imprisonment, but of smaller burdens. Failed relationships, careers that ended badly, moments where we were not our best selves, and yet these too can dominate us if we let them. Living without mercy toward the past requires courage, the courage to say, "I cannot change what was, but I can change what is." It demands that we honor yesterday for what it taught us, then release it like a bird that was never meant to remain in a cage. When we stop feeding yesterday's shadows, the present becomes brighter, and the future begins to open its arms. Without mercy toward the past, we stand unshackled, ready not just to survive, but to truly live.